So let's start with the terrible examples. For example, non-headlines, the soaring ambition of Twitter. That is not a headline. There's no verb. And you're not quite sure what it means, which, I mean, you can kind of get the idea based on soaring and ambition. Um, is Twitter trying to replace YouTube? Question mark. You never, ever, ever, ever want to have a question mark in a headline. That is bad. So no punctuation. So that is also not a headline. Not a headline. The Twitter sphere. We don't even know what that means. So not a headline. Those are what you would consider titles, which means you are not able to really get the idea of the story because it's not a complete thought. What you want to know how to do is write headlines. A headline has a couple different things. Let's start with the parentheses. The parentheses equals verb. You need some, just kidding, that's not right. Let's start with the parentheses. Every headline will need some kind of subject noun. So a subject noun. So in this case, Twitter. So every headline needs a subject. Also, every headline needs a verb. You need an action word in your headline. So every headline needs a verb. And then the hard part to explain is the squiggly lines. Every headline needs kind of the rest of the main idea. So we'll just call it the rest of the main idea. With that being said, you want to be able to write headlines for your own stories. So let's look at here. Twitter reveals its master plan to grow as big as Facebook. The subject is Twitter. The verb is reveals. And the master plan to grow as big as Facebook is the rest of the thought. So that is what you would call a headline. Now, there are some rules for headlines. Notice it kind of sounds a little bit like broken English. So here are some rules for you to type out here. All right, the first rule of thumb is a headline is a complete thought. Second rule of thumb is there is no punctuation at the end. Another rule of thumb is since it's short and sweet, there is no a, an, or the. So do not use a, an, or the. Let's capitalize though. No a, no an, and no the. If you want to use an and in a headline, you're going to use a comma instead. And that is pretty much what you need to know. There's always a subject noun, and there's always verbs. So those are the things you need to know when it comes to writing good headlines. Let's try one together. All right, well, we won't read the whole story, but what started out as a joke became reality this past weekend when a Maine restaurant cooked up a 100-pound burger to celebrate its first year in business. WCSH-TV reports the owners of Deergo's Public House in Yarmouth worked all day Sunday to cook a freshly ground 70-pound beef patty that weighed in well over 100 pounds with the toppings added. Co-owner Brent Grant says he and his fellow owners were looking for something creative to celebrate the restaurant's first birthday. We don't really need to go any further, except for the portions proceeds benefiting a local food bank. So, how can we turn that into a headline? What you need to know is the main idea of the story is about a restaurant from Maine that's cooking up a 100-pound burger, and the proceeds are going to charity. So I would say Maine restaurant cooks up 100 pound, which you'll use the initials, 100-pound burger, comma, instead of and, comma, and that burger should be lowercase because it's not a proper noun, comma. So Maine restaurants cooks up a 100-pound burger, donates proceeds to charity. So there's a good headline. You get the right idea with that story. Let's look at another one. This one, Joey Chestnut maintained his dominance in the sport of competitive eating and expanded his palate by winning the first ever Moritano's Masters Meatball Eating Championship in Las Vegas. Chestnut on Sunday gobbled 50 meatballs in 10 minutes at the looks like Vio All Suite Hotel and Casino. We can keep going and you'll hear some other things, but the main idea of the story has already been mentioned. So, for the headline there, people don't always know who Joey Chestnut is, so I wouldn't say just Joey Chestnut. You would need to say something like Joey Chestnut or competitive eater Joey Chestnut. Competitive eater Joey Chestnut. Make sure you're spelling things correctly. Wins $1,500 at meatball eating contest. So there's your headline. So a headline has the main noun, competitive eater Joey Chestnut. You got your verb, wins, and then you've got the rest of the center, or the rest of the sentence. Main restaurant, that is a place. So main restaurant is your subject. Cooks is your verb. Well, cooks up even. Cooks up is your verb. And what did they cook up? A 100-pound burger. Then you have and, which is just a comma, and then donates proceeds to charity. About is that nouns, you only capitalize the first word. And if you are going to capitalize other things, only capitalize proper nouns in the rest of the headline. So you capitalize the first word and only capitalize proper nouns. For example, competitive is capitalized, eater is lowercase. Joey Chestnut is capitalized because it's a name, therefore a proper noun. Whereas in this one, Maine is not only a proper noun because it's a state, but it's also the first word of the headline, and the rest of it is lowercase. No period, no period. While it sounds like a sentence, it is not a sentence. Therefore, you do not put punctuation at the end. So give yourself a chance to try some headlines on your own.